100,000 reporters worldwide. This is the Daily Wrap from the Wall Street Journal with Michael Kastner.
The Daily Wrap continues. I'm Simon Constable, in for Michael Kastner. The big question on Republican voters' mind is who can beat President Obama, which is why we turn to Tracy Davis. She is a GOP strategist and a former speechwriter for President Bush and apprentice of the late Senator Ted Kennedy. Tracy, thanks for joining us. Who has the best chance among the Republican candidates of beating President Obama?
Well, I would say Mitt Romney. When you think about who's been considered the two front runners, I think that Gingrich's slip in the polls, obviously I think would make Obama's campaign kind of sad because that would have been an ideal candidate for him to revitalize his own base. And I think that people are beginning to realize that.
You mentioned Newt Gingrich, you've mentioned Mitt Romney, you haven't mentioned Ron Paul. They seem to be the three front runners in the GOP race. How are they all doing in the polls right now?
Ron Paul's doing incredibly well. I think what's sort of interesting is, he is barraging Gingrich especially, I guess because he was the leader. And also it's easier to do because he was a Washington insider, et cetera, with these negative ads. And the funny thing is, when Gingrich goes, it's just hard to get mad at Ron Paul, because Ron Paul comes off sort of grandfatherly and kind of gentle, and then he has these ads that just crush. But I think that Ron Paul has a very strong base in Iowa. I cannot see him winning the nomination.
Tracy Davis, GOP strategist and former speechwriter for President George H.W. Bush. That's the first Bush. Does Iowa really matter? Isn't it something of an anachronism? I mean, it's not really the same as a primary, is it?
Well, I feel exactly the same way. I mean, I think it gets all this attention because it's the first one. But I really do agree with you. I just don't think it's that important. I honestly don't. I think that you've got Iowa, you have New Hampshire, but then when you get to South Carolina and you really get to Florida, and you get when you get into the primaries, I think that's when it really heats up, and that's why Romney, he has the money, he has the base. And I just think he's definitely more in it for the long haul. I think Ron Paul, and Santorum and Bachmann, they put so much time into Iowa, and I don't feel like the polls in Iowa or what happens in Iowa is a reflection of what's going to happen on the national level. So I completely agree with you on that.
Okay, we're talking with Tracy Davis, GOP strategist and former speechwriter for President George H.W. Bush. That's Bush 1. Now, we are told that Bush 41, which was George H.W. Bush, backs Mitt Romney for president and says he's not Gingrich's biggest advocate. Is that a good thing? I mean, George H.W. Bush did lose after one term, which is relatively rare.
Well, I think in hindsight, he's more popular than he was at the time. And it was, I was on the campaign. I was I was a writer in the White House, and then I went over to the campaign. And I just have to say, it was just really badly run. And I think that what also happened is in the primaries, when Pat Buchanan came in, and it sort of, and this is something that I think all of the candidates have to be careful about, is it forced him a little bit farther to the right, and he had to cave a lot into the Christian right because of, and he also had to use a lot of money because it was getting humiliating in the primaries to have Pat Buchanan. And then when Ross Perot came in, that I think he would have won if Ross Perot hadn't come in as an independent. And I do believe that, it was just odd because he was so popular, and then it went downhill so fast. But there are a lot of reasons that I could get into of what went on in the campaign.
Thank you very much. We've been talking with Tracy Davis, GOP strategist and former speechwriter for President George H.W. Bush. That's Bush 1. Thank you.
Thank you.